This is Brad A. Milford with the Unlimited Business Wisdom Podcast, where business owners share their wisdom. It's short and to the point to respect people's time. And because we know transforming possibility happens fast and it leads to lasting results. So let's get to it. Question number one. In a few sentences, tell me who you are and what you do.
Hi, Brad. I am Suzanne Castle, and I'm checking in with you from Fort Worth, Texas, where I reside. And what I do is create customized strategies for leaders and companies who are looking to create brilliant teams and then have some creative solutions for how they're showing up in the world. And I do that through the sparkle factor, which allows people to kind of uncover that glimmer that has been tamped down.
The famous Suzanne Castle
I
and
don't know about that.
creativity and glitter.
Yes,
Yes.
all those things. Yes. Yeah, if I had a confetti cannon, it would be going off right now. So there you go.
I love it. I love it. Question number two. What's the best thing about being in business, Suzanne?
I think the best thing for me is watching transformation happen. So I get called into situations where people are pretty stuck and pretty upset, pissed off, and full of conflict. And just to watch the transformation that can happen through some pretty key things. Doesn't take a long time, but that really, it fills up my heart in this moment.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Transformation, freedom, transformation. Those are the most common things that we hear. I love those answers every time. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, you're welcome.
Question number three. We hear from other business owners, and even during this time, or I should say especially during this time, which is how it's actually turning out, through all this COVID and everything, like we're hearing from businesses in the digital space, they're getting so much business that the chaos is causing overwhelm sometimes. Tell me your thoughts on that, Suzanne.
Well, I think a lot of the overwhelm is that people were kind of turning on a dime pretty quickly and just like, okay, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. And maybe not thinking about the system they needed to make sure that they could do all of those things were in place. So I know for me, I use Trello. It is like my magic. And just really, I think the overwhelm comes when we say yes to all of the things which aren't necessarily bad things, but we don't have our back-end systems in place that allow us to show up as our very best selves. So we continue to say yes and things begin to unravel because we haven't really taken care of it that we should.
Agreed. 100%. Thank you. Question number four. We're gonna get to the crux of this here in a moment.
Okay.
What other successful business owners like yourself, Suzanne, should be on the Unlimited Wisdom podcast?
Well, I can think of one especially, and maybe a second. And the first one that I would say is Jason Cutter. And if you're not familiar with the Cutter Consulting Group, he really has several books, like one just dropped. And what he really talks about is authentic persuasion. So thinking through the words that you're using and the way that you're doing that to form relationships, and that ultimately do lead to sales. He's out of the San Francisco Bay Area. He is a wonderful, wonderful guy. So I will definitely connect you after this and make sure that happens. And another one is in that same kind of realm. It should be Kat, the lead boss. She's called the lead boss, Kat Stancic, and she's on the East Coast. Really does work about a relationship base, getting people to a yes, and not necessarily the yes that you want them to, but being able for them to say yes to something. So those two people would be dynamic guests for you and for your listeners. And so I will definitely be connecting you after this to them.
Absolutely love it. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
I love how you told a little bit about each one too. So that's fantastic. Thank you. So question number five, let's really get to some value, as is said.
Okay.
A lot of times, like what piece of wisdom, I like to call it wisdom, what kind of wisdom would you share with other business owners, Suzanne?
Well, I think especially right now, what I would say is that there's a whole lot of people that are creating new things, or they might be feeling the effects of COVID and how it's helping them not communicate in the best ways. I mean, all we have to do is turn on the TV to see that. Am I right? And so that begs the question, at least for me, like what should we do instead? So what I would say is one of the processes I teach when I go into businesses is how to build common ground through asking the right questions. And I would say to do that means you have to literally be interested. But when I say that, people are like, well, I don't know how to do that. I mean, we have our staff meetings. This is all the same all the time. But really what I advocate for is to just use the A.S.K Method, which is A.S.K. It's a template, and I'll give you a link here in just a second, Brad. Anybody's welcome to it. It's totally free for your listeners. But really, A stands for assets, S stands for your sense, And then the K stands for knowledge. So for example, when you're grabbing a meeting with people, the first questions that you need to be gearing towards are the needs-based part of the conversations and making sure that the resources are there. So for example, one question might be, what is one goal we all have in this project? Which sounds kind of like, well, yeah, duh, but I don't know a lot of meetings start with, what is our common goal here? Or what timeline are we working with? Usually those are the after questions, when really what I advocate is they need to be at the beginning because they kind of set the tone for the rest of the meeting. And then when you're talking about your S area of questions, that's really your feelings-based part. And I know as business owners, sometimes we don't give enough attention around a project. So it could even be something like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how compelled are you to make this happen? Just by stopping and really getting the feelings around a project, you might find you've got 2 or 3 people that are really excited, we'll send them off, and you've got 3 or 4 people that really are sucking eggs on it. So I wouldn't advocate that you spend any time like making sure those people are doing that. Use your energy differently, especially in these days when there's so much crazy collaboration happening. And that last section then would be on the K area for knowledge, which really is a deep dive into like skills, abilities, the education around a project to make sure that you can see it to its completion. So you want to be sure that you've got the right people there. So you might need a unique skill for a project that you haven't thought of before. And so this would be the area in which you make sure that you've got exactly what you need. And if you don't, then okay, now how are we going to get it? Instead of figuring out 6 months down the pipeline, you didn't have the person that you really needed. So that's really, I think, one of the ways that I'm showing up in the world is really just asking people to ask better questions at the beginning so that they don't end up in kind of a predicament and then what, right? And then it's just chaos everywhere, like you were talking about earlier.
I absolutely love that. Can you summarize that one more time? So
sure. So A is your assets, and in the template, and if you want to download it, I'm giving you like 10 questions in each area to think about. So A is all of your assets that you have. S is in regards to your sense. How are you feeling about this project, this idea? And then K is knowledge base. So what assets, what team members do you need for the project to come to fruition?
Absolutely love it. And I love that you brought something really practical that someone can use right away. I know you always do, and I appreciate that about you, and I absolutely love it. So I encourage you.
We're inundated with all of the, well, you could, and I'm all about, well, what can I do? Give me something right now that I can make happen.
Absolutely love it, and I appreciate that. Let's switch gears for a moment, Suzanne, because I know you and I go back a little ways, and we can talk business all day.
Yeah.
But we work to live and not live to work, right? So
right.
What's the most fun vacation you ever had? That's one of the beautiful things about being in business, having some freedom, right?
Yes, and that's a big thing for me, is being able to travel extensively. And so Italy is always my favorite place to go, and my favorite times were spent in the Montepulciano or in the Piedmont area of Italy, which a lot of people don't know anything about, but really just kind of noodling around in these teeny tiny villages and meeting these grandmas who, there's no transportation in some of these cities except for a bicycle. The only car might be at the local parish. And it really is just a step back into the slowdown that I know is, I'm a hard charger, as you can catch already in this podcast. And so I need that time to just kind of disconnect and slow down and reconnect with people in a different way. So, and of course, drink lots of wine while I'm there. So those are always my favorite. I
was waiting for when the Piedmont wine was going to come out.
Yeah, got to drink some Barolo all the time. Yeah,
absolutely. And you nailed it. So Barolo is one of my absolute 100% favorites. Yeah. I love some that tan is like, oh, good Barolo.
It's like Pop Rocks and a dragon in the throat, man. It just grabs you and takes hold. So yeah, it's great.
Absolutely love it. Fantastic. Suzanne, thanks so much for being on.
Sure.
Your time. What's the website or social media or your preferred methods, so when someone sees this and they're like, oh, I have to reach out to Suzanne, how can they get it?
That'd be great. So if you want to grab the template, it's the Ask template, and then just put .website. It'll take you right there. It'll shoot the PDF download to you. But you can follow me easily on SuzanneCastle.com, and that has all the channels, the YouTube, the Facebooks, the Instagrams, all the goodies. And so if you just click there, all the links are there for you.
Love it. Grab the goodies. Grab the
Grab
goodies.
the goodies. That's right.
And some glitter while you're at it. This is Brad A. Milford with the Unlimited Business Wisdom Podcast, where business owners making, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's not the money. It's their sharing their wisdom, creating impact globally. Thanks for joining us.